What if the reason your team isn't hitting its goals isn't about performance at all? What if it's about emotion? In this episode, we're uncovering why just 8% of teams consistently succeed and how the E3 leadership code flips the script on how we lead. If you manage people, I wouldn't skip this one. So today we're diving into something every leader feels, but very few can name. So why do most teams plateau? While the rare few break through and consistently hit their goals, we're talking about the 8%. And more importantly, how we can get there or how you can get there. Today, I'm joined by Kathy Eastwood, who is here to unpack the E3 Leadership Code, a new lens on leadership that's grounded in emotion, not just in education. So welcome back to our viewers and subscribers, this show where we dive into strategies, insights, and innovations that drive sales success. I'm Maria White, CEO of Enablement Dojo and co-founder of Good Morning Enablement. Today, as mentioned, we're joined by Kathy Eastwood. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
CEO and founder of E equals Y. I'll say that again, E equals Y. So Kathy is an accomplished executive with over 25 years of progressive experience in driving success through strategic business planning, and also as well, operational efficiency and employee engagement in large corporations as well as small. I actually worked with Kathy in HPE many moons ago, and now she has a very small privately owned business, and she has also held leadership roles in human resources, operations, finance, sales, software as a service, and services. This is huge. Customer success, project management, marketing, and engineering. So you can see that she's got a plethora of business acumen and experience as we go on this journey. So we're very excited that you're here, Kathy. And remember, please like and subscribe. And if you want to join the conversation, please comment and we will get back to you. So welcome, Kathy. We're
Thanks
thrilled
so
to have
much.
you here.
Thanks, Maria. So excited to be here and be part of this kickoff and the Good Morning Enablement programs that you've put together.
Thank you so much. Now, listen, let's start with this. I'm also very interested in the deep dive. So what inspired you, Kathy, a successful corporate career there? What inspired you to start E equals Y?
Yeah, it's interesting. Over the 25 plus years in my career, I really started to see some patterns over and over again. And what it came down to is leaders had the best intentions, but they were still missing the mark, right? They weren't delivering on the result. And it's not because they weren't smart. It's not because they're not capable, but really it came down to that they didn't know how to connect, align, and move people. So that's why I really started E equals Y to help flip the script on leadership, right? To shift from driving execution and tasks to really leading people who will deliver the results. And the E3 leadership code that we built was born out of that mission to create a repeatable structure powered by emotional intelligence that helps leaders express a clear vision, engage their teams meaningfully, and execute with accountability. But it's not just about hitting metrics, Maria, you know that. It's about building trust, consistency, and impact that really lasts. And that's what we're focused on.
Kathy, just so the E equals emotion in your title?
It's one of the E's.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of E's. And I often laugh. There's also my last name's Eastwood.
Yeah.
So it's E equals Y, leaders succeed, and emotions is a big part of it.
Thank you so much. So let's start right at the heart of it. Most teams, obviously, in lots of different companies have very smart people, really good tools, software platforms, and targets. So why do 92%, fall slightly short or very short?
Well, it's funny. It's going to be that E now, right? Because tools and targets don't move people. Emotions do. Right? And so if you think about it, 92% are failing because it's not lack of talent, but they're failing because of misalignment, broken trust, poor execution. And it's really the 8% that are leading with emotional intelligence. They understand that the people are really key and they communicate a clear why, they engage the hearts and mind of people, and they're not just focused on the KPIs. That's what becomes the edge.
Understood. And so what are some of the less obvious patterns, the invisible habits or mindsets that hold high potential teams back from breaking through that, getting to that 8%?
It's little things. Like you said, they're invisible. It could be a gap in clarity. They're not having commitment, right? A lot of leaders think they've got this clear purpose, but they haven't shared it, right? They don't explain why do we need to do something. They're just like, hey, we got to go do this. But they don't tell you why. They don't get people bought into it, right? They don't really see what we're trying to do or feel it. Um, a lot of times, and this one I think is so simple, people are unclear on what their roles and responsibilities are. We assume, oh, you're head of marketing, so therefore you should know. You're in accounting, therefore you should know. But we don't always clearly define it. Or we don't talk about how we want to all show up, right? So it's really the lack of communication, the lack of agreement. And don't forget about feud, the fear, ego, uncertainty, and doubt that we all live with. And that really screams failure when we're not able to focus on all these different things, because that's what blocks us from delivering great results.
Oh, I understand. Now, I've done a little bit of research on the E3 code, but the E3 code revolves around expression, engagement, execution, powered by emotion. And of course, I really love that phrase. Why is emotion the lever here, and why does it matter so much?
I always think about it that people really don't, logic makes us think, emotion makes us act. And
Right.
when we remember how we felt about something, we remember that more than what we were told. And so when leaders can tap into that emotion, right, then they're going to be able to build that trust and drive commitment deeper and really spark the momentum. Because emotion isn't a soft skill. It is actually what drives the execution, right? It gets, when you're into it, when your heart's into it, you want to do more than just the bare minimum.
Right, understood. And so, we do have a lot of leaders who watch our episodes. So, for a leader watching this, how would they know if their team is stuck in stagnation? Like, are there any early warning signs that they should be looking out for?
Absolutely. And often I talk about it's kind of like the messy middle, that space in between direction and delivery. When deadlines are missed, that's a clear indicator. When collaboration feels strained, right? Have you ever been part of a team but no one can make decisions,
Yeah.
right? People get busy and we get disconnected. We avoid feedback. We don't want to have the difficult conversation. Some of the points, the toxic behaviors. When you see that finger pointing, blame shifting, right? It's not always loud, but as leaders, we really have to listen for it and look for it because it's not always obvious. But it's there when you think about it. And so if you see silence or you sense silence in meetings, that's a good indicator. If the teams are off doing their own things, right? I see
Yeah.
misalignment, like each team doing their, no, our metrics are this. And it's like, well, wait a minute, we're all trying to do the same thing. But when teams start to focus on their own in silo, then you've got a challenge.
Okay, let's just kind of double into that. So challenging the old model for a second. What shifts when a leader stops managing for performance and actually starts leading their people?
Yeah, I think it's everything, right? People don't want to be managed.
Yeah.
How often have we heard people don't want to be micromanaged, right? That just sucks the life out of all of us. So people want to be seen, they want to be supported, they want to be challenged. So when leaders really shift from that point of control to connection, suddenly people feel safer and they're willing to take the risks. They're willing to ask the questions, they're willing to step up. And it really unlocks what I call a virtuous cycle. So often we're focused on the end results, right? Profitability. We got to hit the bottom line. Yeah. But if you really think about it from a people first strategy, it's not going to slow your results when you lead people. It's going to actually accelerate it because you're going to have better retention, right? So when people stay, they're more productive, they're more innovative, right? Your costs are lower. How long is it? On average, it takes 6 months to get someone up and be productive. So if you really focus on your people, then they're going to be happier. They're going to stay. They're going to keep the knowledge in place. They're going to be more engaged and productive. And then if you think about it, if your people are engaged, if they're productive, if they're innovative, then that has a direct impact on your customers. Now your customers are excited. And when your customers are excited, they're buying more, they're staying longer, they're referring more customers to you. So now you've created this virtuous cycle, and it ends up really driving better profitability. In fact, according to a report by McKinsey, organizations that lead with this people-first strategy are actually 23% more profitable. That's a huge number, right? And it's also, you and I talked about Salesforce has reported that sales leaders in particular that are more emotionally intelligent have 20% higher win rates. Those are numbers we can't ignore, but yet somehow we think about focusing on the people first is a nice to have. Yeah, once I get the pipeline, then I'll worry about the people. But in reality, you start with the people, you're going to drive the results.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that whole emotional intelligence affects a lot of things because it also affects how people knowing how people respond to you and how you interact with them. So I can just hear the words, from people in HR and other departments going, this sounds really powerful, but I mean, you can't scale that. How do we make sure it sticks and doesn't just become another flavor of the month from how many leadership model trainings have gone through? So what would you say to them? Like how can we not just become another flavor of the month with this E-code?
Yeah, it's a great question. And having been a chief people officer and having been in this position, it really is as simple as making sure you think about leadership as a priority, right? And building a simple leadership development program and not a one-off workshop, not a slide deck that collects dust, but really getting all of your leaders in place and simply. It sounds simple, Maria, but I think you know this. A lot of times people don't even know who all the leaders are within the company. It sounds like you should, but if they're not all in one place, you're not sure of who it is, right? So making sure you know who it is, define what good leadership looks like. Make sure you have a common framework that sets the bar across the board, right? So everyone knows. Then start to build workshops to build trust and relationships. Add in training that teaches the skills that will move the needle. But I would say the most important thing is the continuous connection and practice and coaching around those leadership skills. Something as simple as having a meeting once a month and bringing in experts to help elevate leadership, right? That's so powerful because we all get caught up in the day-to-day chaos that sometimes just being pulled back and being reminded of what is good leadership looks like and how do we interact can make a world of difference. And that's how you make it scalable. Because once you got everyone working together, right, then that's going to move things forward and it starts to build that momentum. And it's not that hard then.
Kathy, this has been incredibly eye-opening. So the E3 code isn't just a framework, it's a mindset that challenges everything we've been taught and about how to lead. So thank you so very much for joining us today. But before we close this off, if you could wave a magic wand and instantly change one behavior in today's leaders, just one thing, what would it be and why?
It's as simple as asking leaders to stop pretending they have all the answers. Because I think the best leaders don't lead from certainty, they lead from curiosity, right? They ask better questions, they listen intently, they create spaces for others to rise. And that really takes self-awareness and it takes practice. Because leadership isn't something that you master once. It's something that you have to invest in over and over again. And the best readers are constantly challenging themselves, learning from others, investing and making sure that they work with others because they know they can't do alone. Because leadership isn't about being the hero, right? It's about building a team of heroes. And so when you approach it that way, everything changes. And that's when you start to build trust, decisions speed up, and results really speak for themselves. And so that's why, with the E3 Leadership Code, it really is a simple reminder of all the things that you need to do as a leader. You need to express the end vision, make sure you've engaged everyone around you and they're bought in, that you're delivering results, but most importantly, that you're leading with your heart, you're showing up authentically, you're having empathy, and you're connecting to the hearts of others to help them succeed and drive change.
That's fantastic. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today. So, everyone, the takeaway here is great teams aren't managed, they're moved. And if you want to lead like the 8%, the E3 code is your starting point. I'll put the details into the description so you can reach out to Kathy's organization directly. We hope you enjoyed this. And please subscribe and share. But most importantly, send this to a leader who you think needs it the most. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks so much, Maria.